I go back up, and the lady comes out. And I explained everything. I said, you guys don't have posted signs. You don't have private property signs. No trespassing. Nothing. I said, second of all, I said, these dogs, well, they said, well, we didn't know what was going on. We heard these dogs screaming. They sounded hurt. I said, okay. If you don't, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If you don't know anything about it, I could see it. I'll give you that. But I said, I did sit there and try to explain to you guys what was going on, and nobody was willing to reason. So I said, furthermore, without any private property posted signs, I said, technically, I can be on your land. Do I want to be that way? No, absolutely not. I said, them dogs took the rabbit over here. We weren't even actually standing on your land. They were just looping through. I said, they're doing what they love to do and what they're supposed to do. I said, you guys doing what you did made me tone them dogs off of a rabbit that they just jumped, which is, in my eyes, borderline disciplining those dogs for doing the right thing. And also, I said, these guys just came from South Carolina to do this hunt, and you just ruined it in the first hour. I said, I could charge you with interfering, but I don't want to. I said, I want you to understand how this stuff works. So I showed him. I took my GPS out. I showed him where the dogs, how it worked, dogs' names, that I have control of them. And I said, these dogs, I said, I don't know, maybe you've seen the wrong thing, have the wrong impression. But I said, these dogs, you'd be shocked at how sweet these dogs are.
A character.
Oh yeah.
and the depth of knowledge to have that, this dog is the nose and this dog is, they won't give up, or it was amazing to see the depth of knowledge in all of that, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You got a pack of dogs, and then all of a sudden one of them's going the other way.
Yeah.
And you're like, where's she going? And she's the one that ends up getting on a track.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's that all about?
It takes the whole team.
It takes and each one their own, and to know that, and to know that that's gonna. All right, hang on, there she goes. Let's see what's gonna happen. And then, obviously, oh, they're gonna run this way. Really? How do you know that? Sure enough, let's just stand over here.
They tell you a story.
I don't believe this is gonna really be. Oh my God. There goes a rabbit. Okay, all right. I got to listen better.
Do what you're told. Those guys know what's going on.
Yeah.
Welcome to Northwoods Whitetails. We're recording. We got Dan Farrow, Chad Hardin, Will Staats. I'm Matt Breton. Guest hosting, I guess. We're here to talk about hound hunting. Chad was sharing the story of his first rabbit hunt.
Yeah. What was that? 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you cook it yet?
No. No, saving it. We always, it's like anything good. It's like an eclipse. You got to kind of
build the anticipation.
You got to let it settle into you and then figure it out. So we got it, and we'll.
You might be disappointed with the rabbit.
Oh no!
Oh no! Sarah's pretty good.
They can be good, depending.
You got to take care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to do it right. You got to. They're a lot of work to get them good.
Fortunately, my wife comes from a family of hunters, so.
And she's an excellent cook.
And she's a good cook, so she'll.
You'll like it then.
We'll be just fine.
Yeah. So, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
First beagle hunt. What did you think, Chad?
It was far more interesting than I expected. Not that I wasn't going to be interested, but the depth of it was much more than I expected.
Yeah.
I was kind of picturing dogs doing dog things, which was exactly what they were doing. But being a part of it, so that you're a human connected to how a dog's doing their thing, and just seeing how each dog functioned, which was really interesting. and just the sheer energy, and like they'll never stop. It's great.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. Like I wish I had that capacity. I almost wish there's a learning lesson in it too for hunting in general. Like, just stay on it. Like you don't have to give it up. Just stay on it. It's like, all right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we love it, but that's their life. Like, they live for that. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's giving, and I kept thinking back to my dog, who comes from a herd, a lineage where that's what their function is, but she doesn't live that way, and you can it's like, you can see a dog that's glowing at the end of a day versus a dog that's, I'm running her and I'm doing stuff, but she's not getting a chance to be her ultimate self. So it's kind of cool to see that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was amazed. We had that one rabbit that you ended up missing.
Yeah.
That ran in front of me, and then it checked when it saw you move. And so it turned. And those dogs, the way they swarmed that track, there's 5 of those little beagles, just tails wagging, noses working, and they caught that check real quick and just kept moving on it. And to see that happen was beautiful.
And then when they came back around, and they lost. It almost was like, they're not going to find that.
That was a big loss. Yeah. And then you really got to see them work. You got to see who does what. You got to see who's got the nose, who's got the brains.
Right. It was far more intriguing than I had anticipated. I was just like, all right, we're going to go watch dogs do dog things. But then it was like, that's actually much more interesting than just watching dogs do dog things.
Yeah. It's not I forget what that is. The kennel show where they show them off and they prance around. These are dogs that are doing work.
Yeah.
And they love it. I always get so excited when I can hear them turn toward me, and my heart starts to pound. And I just love it.
And you guys are lucky because then you actually have like a scale of like when you think the rabbit will be there. And I'm like, they're still they're 150 yards away. That's good.
They can gain that 150 fast.
And then all of a sudden there's a rabbit, and you're like, well, I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, okay, now I got to get ready. Yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah, I remember I was pretty nervous about the first 10 minutes in because, obviously every time you go out, you want them to do the best they can, but it wasn't looking very good. And then Allie had started that other one. Once they joined in there and they came flying by us, I think I looked at you and I was like,
we're in now.
Here we go.
Yeah, that was fun. And it was cool to introduce someone who's a hunter but who hasn't ever hound hunted to that. And just to witness the whole scene and what it's like was a blast.
Matt, I think that's one of the real benefits of hound hunting. Using hounds is you can involve a larger number of people at times. I know with some of the bear hunters, it's a real family affair. And you can bring a lot of people and involve a lot of people. Maybe each has their own individual dog and so forth. So that it's I know that in recent years I've been enjoying just taking young hunters along with me. Now a bobcat hunt is a very, very difficult hunt. Physicality wise, but if you take men and women that are reasonable fitness, they can do it. But I'm getting, that's been a kind of a new thing for me, is to, because I'm a lone wolf hunter. I hunt close to 100 days a winter, mostly alone, and the fact that I've been introducing some other people to it has been very rewarding for me.
Yeah. How is a bobcat hunt with hounds? How do you do that, and how is that different from sort of the more social rabbit hunt we had with beagles?
Well,
what sort of hounds do you
I
run?
often say a bobcat's like a snowshoe hare on steroids. Just like hunting for big bucks or whatever, the first thing you do is got to find a track, and I hunt from my home in Victory all the way to the Canadian border, and most of Essex County, parts of Caledonia County. And some days you'll drive hours and hours looking for a track. And if I don't find a track driving back roads, I'll walk huge snowshoe loops into big bogs and swamps and cedar swamps and in places that I know cats frequent. And so there are days that I'll put 10 miles on my snowshoes before I even find a track. Sometimes I won't find a track till noon or 1 o'clock. And so my hunting territory is so big that I sort of divide it into quadrants, and one day I'll hit a certain quadrant, and hit that heavy, and then then maybe the next day I'll hit another quadrant. But over the years, you get to know these cats, and you get to know where you'll find them. And, it's like an old hunter said to me, a very old mentor of mine, Fred Albeezer from St. Johnsbury's, cat hunting, and same with rabbit hunting, comes down to conditions. And there's nothing more frustrating than have a nice snow with no track. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot of work to find them. We have a really healthy bobcat population all over the Northeast. As a cat population, as the biologist in New Hampshire, I spent nearly 30 years there, and I watched cat numbers just grow and grow and grow. Mm-hmm. And so they were the dominant predator back in the 50s and the 60s, and then coyotes came in.
Right.
But anyway, so it's you just have to cover a big area to find a cat track. And these rabbit hunters are my intel. I have them on speed dial, or they have me on speed dial.
Right.
So every hare hunter that I know has my number, and if they see a cat track, they give me a call, day or night. I remember once this was funny. I was up in, for me it was funny anyways. I was working that day actually. I was up in Pittsburgh checking deer yards, I think, or something, or working with some foresters, and I get a call from a local in my hometown. He says, "Hey, we just saw a cat cross the road here." I said, "Which direction it's going?" And he told me what direction. I said, "I'll be there." And he kind of laughed. He kind of laughed, but he didn't really. I think he should have known what I do. And I drove so fast back to that office and switched trucks and was home. And my dog had caught that cat by late afternoon, and so it was kind of cool. But and he was a rabbit hunter. And he'd seen that cat. So, but
Will, how many dogs are you running?
I have 3. I have an 8-year-old. They're all plot hounds. An 8-year-old Anna, and a 5-year-old Tilly, and Anna's puppy Sen, who's 3. And at times I'll run 3, and then at times I'll run 2, and sometimes 1. I'll rotate them around and stuff. And I want each of my dogs to be able to do it on their own. So I make sure that they can do it on their own. So I will specifically just run 1 dog on a cat track. And, 3 is 3. I sometimes call it the curse of 3 dogs because that's a lot of tracks. And a cat is extremely smart, and they don't leave a lot of scent in their tracks. And they're very adept at losing the dogs, doing very, very complicated circles and figure 8s and climbing on logs and going through the toughest territory you'll ever go through.
It's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Even the rabbits, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Like their ability, and like Dan was saying, this rabbit's going to loop because he's trying to lay scent to confuse the dogs. And I was like, wait, I didn't even think like that was that's how they're functioning.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see like on a natural level, okay, dogs are doing their thing, but the rabbits are doing their thing.
Oh, sure.
And,
sure.
And the rabbits are coming up, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
They're doing,
yeah.
Yeah.
You'll see with cats, you've seen a house cat toy with a domestic dog, and a bobcat a toy with a hound too.
No kidding.
And stay just a little bit ahead and look back. I've seen them get up on a rock, and they're just listening to those foolish hounds fighting their way through some real thick stuff, and eventually, if they press the cat enough, they'll catch it. And I don't mean physically catch it, but the cat will go up a tree, or go into a hole, or bay up. It'll get under a blowdown or under a stump or under a rock and bristle up, and the dogs will bark at it, and I'll come up and take some pictures and go home. But they're super intelligent. They don't leave a lot of scent. If the dogs are close enough, they can run body scent. But you notice, Chad, how Dan and I are talking about the dogs because that's what it's all about.
I learned.
It's not about killing animals.
No,
I mean, we don't. I could care less about killing a bobcat.
Well, and then just talking, throughout the day, like just running the dogs.
Yeah.
Not even. It's not. And we got there, and we come out. We got shotguns, and Dan comes out with a GPS. And we're like, "No gun?" He's like, "No. I'm just running dogs. Like this is what I'm into." And I was like, "Oh, this is really about running dogs.
It's about the dogs. Yeah. It really is, and it's about watching an animal that's been bred to do this, do its job effectively.
And for you to actually train that dog to be its best self. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, like you talked, it is rewarding to bring first-timers out there and show them, let them harvest something.
Yep.
But for me and you, like we talked about in the driveway earlier, like, we very rarely harvest any rabbits.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to see the dogs do the best they can. You know the time that it takes to put into them, and it's when you go out and they just have an awesome day, it's like going and watching your kids at a sports game, making goals, stuff like that. It's
absolutely
all that time and stuff pays off, and it's definitely about the dogs.
Yeah, I mean, there's many like you, Dan. I know many rabbit hunters who never take a gun.
Yeah,
my good friend, he runs all winter long, and once in a while his cousin will come up or something. He'll shoot a rabbit. And as Dan and I know, you don't have to kill game to get good dogs.
Right.
They don't have to have game killed to them. They really don't, because they're doing it because that's what they've been bred to do, and that's part of their heritage, and part of their lineage. And I mean, because we kill 1 or 2 bobcats a winter, we eat them. We use the fur, but it's not about killing cats. In fact, most of the bear hunters will tell you they love the training season. The summertime training season. That's when they have the fun.
It's my favorite.
So Dan was
really,
yeah.
I mean, because we can take the kids out. Any of us, like, we can go out there for the day. We can put, like you talked about, sometimes running 1 or 2 dogs. Give a dog that needs some solo time by themselves. Run them for part of the day, and then pick them up. Grill lunch on the tailgate while the kids are playing in the dirt. In the ditch while the dogs are running, put another dog out. That's my favorite to me. You have a coffee in the morning, and you can have a beer at night just listening to them,
Sure.
Yes, it's great in the winter to see kids get excited to harvest a rabbit or anything, but...
Yep. And what I look at is this: if I take a particular cat, I don't get to see that track again.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've caught some of the same cats year after year.
No kidding.
Oh, sure. I know them. I know where they go, and we know what they look like. We know where they are at, and it's kind of fun to see them, And when their track disappears, it kind of hurts.
So it's pretty amazing to get to know the woods and get to know an area to that depth. Right? I think a lot of people. I think about it deer hunting. Now that I'm starting to learn how to track a deer, there's a depth to being in the woods on that level that I don't think you get any other way.
That's right. Yeah, when I first started coming around some of the great houndsmen, there weren't any finer woodsmen that you'd find in the woods than the houndsmen, and they were the men and women that knew the country the best of anybody. Well, way more than any other hunting. Folks that hunted was the houndsmen and women knew that country so well, and I was so impressed with that. Especially the bear hunters, or cat hunters, because you cover huge areas.
Yeah.
Right.
And so these guys would know these back roads. They'd know they've been on that mountain or they've been on that mountain. And my whole life has been about exploring big country. And if I happen to be doing it on the track of a deer or cat, so much the better. And so I was so impressed when I first met these hunters up here in the kingdom. Fred Albeezer, Dwayne Smith, Paul Doyle, some of the greats that have all passed on. I realized that you just talked about the depth of knowledge they had for that country because they'd hunted all over. And I said, man, I want to be like that.
Yeah,
I want to have that knowledge.
I can see where that would be a driving energy, because it's something else to know, oh, there's a bog over there. Yeah, that's where they're going to get to the backside. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of knowledge.
Oh, sure.
Just in tracking.
Yep.
Right? Just in watching dogs do their thing.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
They take us some places that no human should ever go.
Right,
I've often said that.
You need 4 legs to get there.
I remember I was in the middle of a very thick.
You haven't seen me deer hunt.
I remember I was in the middle of a really, really bad spot. And of course, Dan's been in many places because the cats and the hares go in the same places.
Yeah.
But it was such an impossible spot that I'd gotten myself into following the dogs. And you got to realize back when I started running hounds, we had no telemetry whatsoever. So I had to run behind the dogs. Now, obviously, I couldn't keep up with them physically if they ran ahead, but I would take a compass bearing on where they went and follow them and follow their tracks in the snow. So if they went into a godforsaken place, I had to too. And I remember I was in this place and just completely surrounded by regeneration, softwood regeneration over my head, blowdowns everywhere. And it was when I first got a cell phone, and it rang. And it was my family having lunch together, laughing and singing songs, and they were calling me about some issue about Christmas or something. And they noticed I was out of breath. They said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I can't even describe where I am, but if you could drop a gallon of water to me from a helicopter, that'd be nice." Because I was looking around and I'm saying, I don't know if I can ever get out of here. I mean, I literally, of course I did, obviously, but you just had to go with where at that time I was running my Coco dog, and she and I were just, this is the other thing, Chad, and you probably noticed it with Dan too, is once you've run with these dogs for so long, you become an inseparable team. You and those dogs, you form a relationship and a bond that's like nothing else. Now, we all know a little bit about that, having a domestic dog at our house that we love like a member of the family.
Right.
Well, these are our members of family, but we've been in battle with them for years, in these places that we've gone to and seen these dogs perform and frankly, at times risked our lives for them. Yeah. And we have. Yeah. So there's a bond that non-hunters, or at least hunters that don't use dogs, wouldn't understand. You could intuitively understand it, again, having your pet dog, but remember, you guys, you're this team. Yeah. And I rely on them, but they rely on me. So I always said I would go anywhere I had to go to get to my dogs. Yeah. If I had to, and I went some horrible places. It's very scary places.
There's a huge difference in understanding the logic of it, or the paper knowledge of it, versus the physicality, right? Mm. The experiencing, having to follow those dogs, having to care for those dogs in the middle of whatever's going on. It's
and Chad, what it comes down to too is, beyond the respect that I have for these dogs and the admiration, it's one word, and that's love. I mean, I love these dogs like that people that don't understand the use of dogs and that think that we treat them as tools. Nothing could be further from the truth, because I'm telling you, every one of these dogs is so unique and special, as Dan was saying. Each one has a different, a little different person. You were saying different personality, different abilities. Yeah. And every time we lose one, it's a heartache that it leaves a hole in your heart.
Yeah. It doesn't go away.
I've got a dog buried out in the Victory Bog, and every time I go by that spot, I yell to her. I call to her. Mm. And I've done that forever, since she died 6-7 years ago, and I'll never forget her. But that's what we develop with these animals, and that's what it's really. Again and again, I have to bring it back to the fact that it's not about killing game; it's about the dogs, And so anyways,
yeah. I mean, as you know, Matt, like, we run together quite a bit, and for a long time, we were having some real good runs too, and then all of a sudden, my luck took a turn for the worse with a bunch of dogs.
Right.
And I, other than old Allie, pretty much restarted everything.
Have to restart,
And, it actually, I almost stopped for a while. I wouldn't ever give it up, but it was, Joey remembers, it was
it that Macy dog?
Probably a few weeks from the season ending, maybe a month, and I didn't do anything. Yeah. Joey'd message me, hey, it's like,
and that's probably a painful story to tell, but that was a heartache.
Yeah.
Yeah. Losing her.
And I really didn't, I almost didn't have an interest in going. And then after a while, I'm like, that's not fair to the other ones. Like, this is still their life. They still want to go,
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you know, just like you, love all the dogs. You know, they all have their personalities, their strong spots. But this one, you know, we'd go out. Matt's been with me a lot when we'd run, and you know, if they were gonna run 8 or 10 different rabbits out of the day, she was gonna start 7 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
You know,
When you heard her open, you knew things were happening.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it just talk about heart. A dog with heart. I've never had one like it. And come late season, one of my buddies never had been. It was going to be his first time. We went out. We're having a pretty good day, but late season, you know, some of them rabbits, they start pairing up. Some of them males where their home ranges is a ways away. And they're really running out. We've ran that area 1,000 times, never had an issue.
Right.
This rabbit heads way out back to this bog where there's a section of open water. The rabbit did not think that it was all open water. It thought it was all froze. So it was in the wide open running out. And when I had her and her son, and when they got out there, you know, that rabbit just bailed in and it just swam across. But it was frozen on both sides. And took her under. And I knew instantly. You know, you watch them, you always learn something from your dogs, but you watch them every day, even on the GPS, you know when something's not right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And something was wrong. I looked at my buddy, I said, that we got a problem. It was showing the brook was way off on the brook because on the map because it went through a bog.
Yeah.
But I said that there's a problem out there. They jumped that rabbit hot.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And went dead silent.
Oh.
And then a question mark popped up on one. So I said we got to get out there. And my buddy, he's a lot scrawnier than me, thank God, because her son, that male I had, was still hanging on to the ice. And he belly crawled out there and pulled him up. And I yanked my jacket off. I got all the water I could off him, and I wrapped him up and lugged him out.
Yep. Yep. You never found her?
No.
Oh, boy.
No, you searched a bunch, too.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looped around that. I found where the wet rabbit's feet come out from the other side.
Yeah.
Nobody's fault, just a freak accident,
Sure.
you know. But it killed me.
Oh,
Killed me
God.
for weeks.
Yeah. The thin ice scares me terrible when I start running in December after muzzleloader season. I'd rather have no ice at all or all ice. I mean, that sounds kind of odd, but that edge ice you're talking about terrifies me because cats will they will get on that thin ice and walk for miles down it. In fact, we were on a big cat in Victory Bog last year, and that cat walked down the edges of the Moose River on the shelf ice. We had to grab the dogs because they don't stop, you know, and they're going to try their hardest. They know that's dangerous, but they don't know when the ice is going to give way. You know, I'm so sorry to hear that because that's you know, you can't. Each dog is so unique. You'll never replace it.
Yeah.
You'll have other good dogs.
Yeah.
But you'll always, you know, I always remember my Coco dog, or I always remember my Dandy dog, and you go through the litany of these dogs, and then once in a while you'll have a dog that is exceptional.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'll have good dogs, but you'll have an exceptional dog, and when you lose those, that kills you.
Yeah.
That kills you more. I mean, they're all heartaches. I always say when I have 3 dogs at home, my 3 that I have, I'm like, I have 3 heartaches. You know. I took a young fellow hunting this winter with me, it was funny. We were looking for a track, and this cat track had crossed this logging road, and I said, I'm going to run that one, and took the dogs out, and I was just starting to unsnap the leash, and he said, Will, he says, what are you thinking right now? How are you feeling right now? Nobody'd ever asked me that.
Right.
And the one word popped right into my head so fast I almost surprised me. I said anxious, because every time you unsnap those dogs from that leash, something can happen. You know, I mean, and something can happen to your dog. Not that's what scares us the most, and it's part of what hunting is. It's not risk free, right?
Right.
And but I will say, the tracking collars, the GPS tracking collars we have right now, has made It has been a game changer, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would never run without.
I wouldn't
again.
run without it either. No,
And,
I'd quit.
and me and Matt have talked about it.
Yep.
Me and Matt have hunted around some of the same old stubborn dogs that we were trying to catch after dark.
Yeah.
You'd
And
have
would
to
never
jump
do it
on 'em.
again.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Yeah, it was always a blast, but you had to know ahead of time when you were done for the day because it used to be a pain.
But
I was amazed at your ability. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, you're good.
To tone those dogs and call them off and have them come right back.
Incredible.
Yeah, like start hollering like the beagles we used to hunt with that never had experienced a tone.
Yeah.
And there was not the same control that there is now.
Yeah.
It was wild.
And I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think you have to have them that way now.
Yeah.
We've always had some predators, but 25 years ago,
There
or
weren't the
20,
coyotes.
20 I shouldn't say 25. I probably started running beagles when I was 10, so 20 years ago. We had a couple issues, but it was rare. We did not have as many coyotes. We don't have much bear issue in the winter.
Right, but in the summertime.
But the amount of bears, coyotes, everything we have, like those coyotes get pretty territorial. You have to have them dogs where
Trained.
you can get them. You have to be able to call them off.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important about having, whether you run coyote dogs, bear dogs, rabbit dogs, whatever, like that's where everybody is so important to have support those guys that run coyotes, bears, all that. Like it keeps those dogs or those coyotes a little bit more. I don't wanna
Wild.
Skittish.
Yeah, I don't want to say scared, but it takes a little bit of the dominance out of them. When they hear dogs barking, instead of them running in trying to move in on your beagles, you want them to think, "I'm going to move away from here a little bit."
Right. Well, and we're part of an ecosystem when we're out there, and whether people deny it or not, like we're involved and we're participants in this, and so every level needs management at every other level.
Yeah,
Whether that's coyotes and managing that, so they don't go after your beagles, and cats for rabbit populations, all that stuff. I think it's super valuable.
Takes all positions.
And the other, I think thinking about that control piece brings me to the other story you were telling about, managing around human populations. Like, I don't know how you want to get into that, but I think it's a valuable story in terms of how we hunters interface with non-hunters or people who just don't know about hound hunting.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to. You need to be able to call them out.
Yeah.
When there's a situation like that one I had.
Yeah.
So the one I had, and this kind of goes back to the people not understanding hound hunting or how it works and opening somebody's eyes to it. I was running, actually my cousin and a buddy had come up all the way from South Carolina to go. They do about every other year. They love it. They come up for a hunt. They could only hunt for a day and a half, so we couldn't get out till midday. So we went down, and, dogs started. They run pretty good. One of them was able to harvest a rabbit. We go over, dogs start on another one. They're running it pretty good. They're hot on it. They just jumped it. Well, where it had gone was up towards somebody else's house, and no private property signs, no posted, everything was legit. So the dogs were looping through the back, and all of a sudden I hear people yelling. And I mean, they're screaming, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. So I start heading over there, and those guys stayed back. Nobody brought any guns over there, no nothing. And I hear them screaming at the dogs, and one's back at the house, and they're screaming that they can't catch it. And I said, no. I said, I got the dogs right here. They're okay. Just leave them be. And they instantly, once they realized I was in there, they started screaming at me. I mean, calling me every name in the books, saying that I'm hunting private property and that they have every right to shoot my dogs. They can call the game wardens, on and on and on. I said, you guys just don't understand what you're saying right now, or you don't understand how this works. I said, just relax, come over here, I will explain it. I said, just leave the dogs alone. They'll be out of here in no time. We're not willing to reason. I mean, it was not going to happen. So I said, okay, I got to get these things out of here. Because at this point, they're threatening to shoot my dogs. Who knows? So I'm trying to call these dogs off. Meanwhile, they're yelling back here. The dogs are getting pretty confused over who's yelling. And they're still just really wanting to start a war. And I said, listen, I finally, I really wanted to react in one way, but I couldn't. And I was like, you guys, honestly, just need to stop talking and just go back to your house. You're telling me you want me off this property right now. I can't do so until you stop yelling because you're confusing the dogs. I can call them off. They wouldn't reason. So anyways, they started going back to their house. I quickly called them dogs off, and I moved them out. They called the game wardens. No problem. Then I spoke with the game wardens. The game warden explained to them in a few things. Well, he got my name, the guys I was hunting with, where I was. Worked out well because that local game warden lived in the area. He knew it well. I said, here's where we went in. I said I had control of the dogs 100% of the time, which technically you do not have to with rabbit dogs anyways. But I said I will keep everything on my map, on my GPS, to show you where I went in and to show you everywhere we did go. And he said, yes, do not let that go. And he said, what do you want to do about this situation? He says, I explained to them that they do not have posted signs, that nothing. It was 100% a legit hunt. He said, I could charge them with interfering with a lawful hunt. I said, Ma, that's not really my interest. I said, these people were clearly uneducated about how all this works. They want to shoot the dogs, think that they have the right to, all this. I said that they don't understand it. He said, well, let me call them back. And he talked to them and explained to them in some ways they were wrong. And he said, that lady would like you to go up there and talk to him. And I said, well, I would like to do the same, but I want to know that it's going to go better than what it did down there before I go up there.
Right.
Put yourself back in the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody calm down a little bit, Like, I didn't want to get fired up either, but like we talked about, these dogs are family. When you start threatening to shoot them, I'm starting to get a little bit irritated. So anyways, everybody calm down. I told the game warden, I said, I don't want to charge with that. I said, I want them to understand where they were wrong. If I go back there and they're very reasonable and understand it, everything's good. I said, if I go back up there and it's the same attitude, I said, we'll have to do something. Or at the very least, he'll need to come up and speak to them with me. So I go back up and the lady comes out. And I explain everything. I said, you guys don't have posted signs. You don't have private property signs. No trespassing. Nothing. I said, second of all, these dogs, well, they said, well, we didn't know what was going on. We heard these dogs screaming. They sounded hurt. I said, okay. If you don't, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If you don't know anything about it, I could see it. I'll give you that. But I said, I did sit there and try to explain to you guys what was going on, and nobody was willing to reason. So I said, furthermore, without any private property posted signs, I said, technically, I can be on your land. Do I want to be that way? No, absolutely not. I said, them dogs took the rabbit over here. We weren't even actually standing on your land. They were just looping through. I said, they're doing what they love to do and what they're supposed to do. I said, you guys doing what you did made me tone them dogs off of a rabbit that they just jumped, which is, in my eyes, borderline disciplining those dogs for doing the right thing. And also, I said, these guys just came from South Carolina to do this hunt, and you just ruined it in the first hour. I said, I could charge you with interfering, but I don't want to. I said, I want you to understand how this stuff works. So I showed him. I took my GPS out. I showed him where the dogs, how it worked, dogs' names, that I have control of them. And I said, these dogs, I said, I don't know, maybe you've seen the wrong thing, have the wrong impression. But I said, these dogs, you'd be shocked at how sweet these dogs are. So I brought 2 of them down. They came out with a little girl, a little baby, and they were petting the dogs, you know, and they thought it was cool. And they thanked me for explaining it.
Well,
and I said, you know, I want you to tell me right now if this will ever be another issue here, because I said, I don't run here much. I don't like running near places, but it is my family's land, and it's convenient. But I said, if it's going to be another issue, just tell me and I will never come back. And they said, you know, now that you explained it and we understand it, there will never be an issue. And next time we hear them dogs, we will probably actually go outside and watch to see how it works.
Yeah.
They were very interested.
that's
in it.
great. Yep.
You know what I mean? It's a lot of people, they see the wrong thing. They just,
well, they interpret it.
Yeah.
It's how they interpret it because they don't know. And you did a great job of explaining to them. And you know, for folks that are not acquainted with what this involves, they just picture an animal running through the woods scared to death with his pack of bloodthirsty animals behind him, dogs, which is just so far from the truth, you know? And
it's amazing, like watching, I've not chased a cat, but to see a rabbit, how relaxed it can be.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They just stop.
it's almost comical.
Oh, it's...
You're like, this rabbit's fooling around. Yeah. Like, he's just like, I got you guys. You're going that way. I'm going the other way.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it's and you know, I also when bears go up a tree, for instance, when folks tree a bear, bears evolve to go up trees.
Right.
You know, that's where they sleep sometimes, they feed, they play, they rest. So going up a tree it's natural to them. They're not scared to death. We used to walk into trees. I worked on a bear capture program where we used one of the research projects that I worked on. We were catching whole bear families with hounds. And many times we walked in, and if it had been a while, the bear was asleep in the tree.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, sometimes they're chuffing and slapping the tree. They're trying to intimidate the dogs. But they're not up there because they're terrified. That's what you'll hear. They're terrified. No, they're going up the tree because they're annoyed with these dogs that have been on their heels. And generations of bears learned to climb because they were probably avoiding very big predators back in the woolly mammoth days, you know, that really big creatures. And so, yeah, it's but that's the impression people have when they don't have knowledge, just like the people that you dealt with there too, Dan, you know.
You hear the same thing with sled dogs, right? People don't like seeing sled dogs all amped up and going, this is them. This is what they are. They're dogs that that's them ready to go.
Yeah.
Beagles the same way. It's a racket, but man. And what's really funny is even in a day, you can figure out the different sound of different dogs.
Right.
Like it blows my mind. I was like, now I'm starting to pick up Allie. Oh, there goes Allie again. Oh, Allie's, and you're like, oh, wow. It really is. There's a depth of sound that if you don't know sounds traumatic, but if you do know, It's actually
Exciting.
yeah,
It's music.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
music.
yeah,
music,
it is
Chad.
music.
There you
It's,
go.
it's improv jazz.
Yeah. And I remember one bear that we caught when I was working for the bear capture program back in the 80s, and we treed the bear. We darted it with a tranquilizer, and it fell into the net. And we were handling it, and the dogs were barking. You know, they're excited. They're leashed off, and Charlie Willie, the bear project leader, God rest his soul. Charlie was my biologist mentor. He said, "God," he said, "will you tell those dogs to shut up?" And Galen Smith said, "That's not noise to us," he says. "That's music."
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Yeah, and Charlie had to kind of got a wry grin on his face. You know, he knew he'd been had. You know, because it is. You know, and they tell us a story all day long. You know, people say, "What can you tell?" Oh, Anna's cold trailing right now. Anna's jumped the cat now, or Sen is boogie barking at the cat, or whatever. You know, they're telling us a story, and and you can hear that unraveling across the hills or in the swamps or whatever.
One of my favorites of that day was it Dozier? He was what a character that dog was.
Yeah.
He never stopped talking. And he never stopped sniffing.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
he would sniff right over one of the rabbits your dad got, and just kept on the trail, like never even stopped at the rat. I was like, wow.
Doesn't grasp that rabbit was what he was chasing. He was just looking for the scent.
I was standing next to Dan, and Dan's like, see, all nose.
No eyes.
Great nose.
Well, yeah, it's
awesome.
fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and even like you talk about your old Anna dog, like you've ran with her 1,000 times, and how many times you go out and you still learn something from her?
You better realize there's, you know, they know a lot more than you do. A lot of times.
It's not the same story every
No,
day.
it's not.
It's always a new adventure with them.
And you know, more often than not, when I doubt them, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you have to go into it wide-eyed. You got to have sometimes have a little dose of skepticism. And are they doing the right thing out there? I mean, you know, maybe I know better, but they almost always know better because they got a nose that's 1,000 times stronger than ours, and that's what they rely on. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. That's the only thing they really use their brains for. You know, we use ours for so much more.
That's right.
And they're trained to think about one thing all the time.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, trained and bred. I was doing some reading before this, like 30,000 years of human dog history together, working together, from wolves to domesticated dogs. Yeah. Depending on what you read, 15 to 30,000 years.
Yeah.
Predates civilization, predates all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, even though like I don't get into all of it, like it's still super neat to see all different kinds. Like I'm still really interested. I don't want to do all of it. I do what I love, but it's super neat to see the bird dogs, coyote dogs, bear dogs. You know, any working dog that, blood trailing dogs, like any
it's
working
incredible.
dog is.
Yep. Well, you know, I told this in front of a large audience recently, and this winter my dogs had hit a track, and it was Sen and Anna. I left Tilly home that day, and they went up this big swamp and treed, and I had put on my snowshoes, and I hiked in there. It was a pretty long hike, pretty tough snowshoe, and I got into the tree, and a beautiful day, just crystal clear day. The beautiful cat looking down at me, you know, and took a couple of pictures. It was during the kill season. If I wanted to harvest the cat, I could have, but I had no interest in it, you know. I liked the fact he climbed a tree. And so I hitched those dogs up, and I was walking out, and it just struck me, and this has been more than once, that how I'm part of something so much bigger, you know. Just what Dan was saying, that you know, people, and you said that people and dogs have been working together for 15, 30,000 years. And I feel every time I go out a connection with, whether it's the Inuit with their sled dogs pursuing a white bear on the ice, or whether it's a raccoon hunter in the swamps of Arkansas. You know, we're all tied together with that bond of working dogs, and that culture of dogs, and using, working as a team, to accomplish something.
Right.
So yeah, it's always but that particular day it really struck me as I was snowshoeing out with those two hounds and just saying, "Wow, this is incredible." But it also struck me too that there were people that were trying to take that away from me.
Yeah.
Right.
That had no knowledge of what we do, and and they were bound and determined, and they are bound and determined to take this away. And I would not want to deny my grandchildren or Dan's grandchildren or Chad's grandchildren or yours that opportunity if they wanted to do that.
Well, what an opportunity it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Like, it's special to watch it all go down.
I mean, you said it that day when we got back to the pickup. We got back there. We were obviously trying to harvest that rabbit at the end, but we didn't. And you know what? No, that's great because look at how much. Yeah, look at how much fun we had running that thing and all the stories, and we're gonna have just as much fun running that rabbit the next time.
Exactly.
But we got back there, and you're like, that is so much more than what I expected, and that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
They just. Yeah. I don't want everybody to love it. I don't want everybody. They don't even have to agree with it, but they should understand it.
Yeah, and not take it away from us.
Right, and they should we talked earlier. There are lots of things I'm not sure people should be doing, but I don't necessarily try to stop them from doing that. Right. And I think and this is April 12th of 2024. The S.258 is in front of the house. We've talked about it on this podcast before. There'll be a little call to action here in a second, but that's in front of the house right now that people are just trying to strip this at some fashion. And right now it's just coyote hunting. But I don't love using slippery slope arguments, but there is a reality here that if coyote hunting goes away, cat hunting goes away, beagle hunting goes away, bird dog hunting goes away, and before long, deer hunting goes away. And, we're all deer hunters, deer trackers, and gosh, so I think if there even needs to be a change to Fish and Wildlife Management in the state of Vermont, it needs to be done in a far different fashion than what's going on now. And so to people listening to this, I think we need to really make sure you're contacting your representatives. If you're listening to this as it comes out, contact the House Energy and Environmental Committee. Amy Sheldon's the chair of that. Get emails out, call the Sergeant at Arms, and have them deliver a message. The Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation has an action alert. BHA has an action alert. If you've got a phone and Google, you can find this stuff and get messages out to your representatives to oppose S.258, or at least really make it something hunters, anglers, trappers can agree with. We're open to opinions in terms of management of wildlife. Everyone's opinion in the state matters. It is a public trust. But as we've talked about, hound hunters, trappers know this stuff at a depth that evades most people who are just looking at it on TV.
Oh, well, because you just don't know.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know. I mean, you have an idea maybe, but the idea I can guarantee it's not the reality of the situation. It would be interesting for all the people that are in opposition to spend a day watching dogs work. Not hunt, just watch them work.
Yeah.
Meet them.
Just
meet a few.
Just meet them.
Yeah.
Just look at them.
I think, like we talked about, I think a lot of it comes from things I see on social media, misleading.
Oh, sure. There's spin and there's things taken out of context.
Editing.
Yep,
sure.
And then sometimes we're not always doing ourselves a favor. Some of that stuff gets put out there to self-promote, which is the whole idea of social media. And that we don't maybe need to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Think about what you post.
We do live in a world driven by social media now. I mean, there's no question. And I think we need to use it to send these types of messages instead of, more towards, I don't know how to say it. I'm not trying to diss anybody, but the pride thing, like we all, as houndsmen, we want our dogs to be the best. We want people to
know they're the best.
Yeah,
right.
we do. You know, we put a lot of work into them, all this time. They're so close to us. We want people to think, wow, you know, that guy's got good dogs. He does a good job.
like any good
with
good
anything.
team.
Yeah. With anything.
Yeah.
You know, deer hunting, turkey hunting, you know, anything. Right. Wow, that guy's, you know.
Yeah.
It is a big pride thing, and I think it can be, especially in hound hunting. But I think in this world driven by social media, we got to be careful how we put hound hunting in anything really out there, and just use the social media for trying to send messages to the right people like this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sure.
Got to shift the algorithm.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
From negativity to the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing we haven't had a chance to mention here is, you know, as a wildlife biologist, we've used hounds for research many times. They're used all over the world for catching big cats and bears for research studies. But another very important function that we used hounds for in both in Vermont, New Hampshire, and other places as well is human wildlife conflicts.
Right.
Particularly bears. We did a study in New Hampshire, and using hounds was the most effective non-lethal tool that we had for hazing a bear away from a bad situation. You know, and the alternative was the bear was going to end up dead. But a houndsman came in willingly, and they do it all the time. Come in willingly to put their dogs on that animal. And haze it away from that situation. The bear generally leaves the area. Yeah. And the you know, Dan was touching upon it a little while ago, was that you know, the summer training season kind of keeps the bears on their toes. Right. If they're getting around human habitation and they're running them during this training season, those bears are more wild, quote unquote wild. They're still wild no matter what we do, but they know that that's not a place. The bears are extremely intelligent, and you know, I dealt with hundreds and hundreds in my career, and they're very, very intelligent. But you know, we relied many times on houndsmen and women to solve some of those conflict issues that we had, non-lethally.
Right.
Again, you know. I won't go on, but you know, I dealt with many situations where landowners were not very tolerant of the bear, and sows ended up dead and cubs were orphaned because. But we could have solved that situation, bringing some dogs in and running those animals out of there. So, but again, and also just a great tool for research. You know, mountain lions, jaguars. Bears, obviously, lynx, all caught with hounds.
Yeah. You know, they can do things we can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, in Montana, me and you talked about it a little bit, but you know, I've done a little bit of all of it, really. I mean, all the hound hunting we can have around here, whether it not be with my own hounds, I've gone with it to see what it was like, you know.
Yep.
And it's in everybody I went with, coyote hounds, cat hounds, we used to tree mountain lions, bobcats. It's all we did in the winter in Montana and stuff. Like bear hounds, that species is not that houndsman's enemy. You know, we would do anything we can to protect it. Yep. So I think people are very misled by that. I think they think we're out to harvest all this, and that's completely the opposite. Opposite. We would do anything to save this.
Yeah, it's a different, more rich experience with a lot of depth, and you know, it's valuable beyond just the numbers and the social media posts. Like there's a relationship there that people learn and grow from in a way that I think a lot of people have no idea about.
Yeah, it's a very unique way of being out and being in nature.
Yeah, being really a participant, which
and,
I think
and
is
not just on the animal level, but I mean, like just seeing how those animals exist on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's not easy being a rabbit.
No.
But they do it pretty well.
They're great at it. I had a friend. I like to track rabbits too. They're like miniature deer, and my buddy was his line is, if they were only brave enough to close their eye, you'd never find them.
No, you would never see them. You always see the eyeball or the little black at the tip of their ear.
Yeah, that's it. All right, guys. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
And everyone listening, please talk to your representative. Get your spouses, your cousins, your uncles, your aunts to write in and make sure we do what we can to keep this hound hunting thing going and Fish and Wildlife Management in the state of Vermont. It's been successful, and I think it's going to continue to be so if we can keep it the way it is. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.